Good morning. So we wanted to go into certified transfer overage. As Virginia had said, our timeline has changed several times for certified. We're hoping this is our final change. We've sent an email out about, due to the uncertainty of the elementary school and the multi-track schools, we did extend elementary transfer. We started April 13th. All transfers for all schools will end on May 4th. And for those that have gone through transfer and overage before, after transfer closes, we have a very short timeline to get everything else done. So all hiring paperwork has to move to HR by the end of business on May 5th. We've had questions about how many transfers you have to interview. If you have 3 qualified candidates apply to your position, then you're required to interview at least 3 teachers for each position. This year we did offer a special CSIP for our certified employees. That period is closed. They had a week to sign up for it. Applications were due on the 17th. It does go to the board on April 25th for possible action. There's been no determination of whether or not that CSIP or certified is going to be approved yet. But we did have everybody go in and apply. Sorry, no problem. We had 62 teachers apply in all different categories. So, gen ed, elementary, secondary, special ed. So we have across the spectrum.
Do you foresee pushing that May 4th date out? Because if we're not going to find out probably till the 26th or 27th, that doesn't give us a lot of time if we want to take another transfer.
So we go into from here. So we're not looking to change. If ESIP gets approved for those for those teachers on the 25th, those positions, you still can reassign within your school. If you're doing any reassignments, I think I just hope that evaluations reassign within your school, and then anyone that's still available would be on the overage list for teachers. You still have the ability to.
Please stand up if you mind speaking up.
Sorry. So you still have the ability to reassign within your school, and then any positions that are still remaining after those reassignments would be available for overage teachers. So just a few reminders, there's no increase in full-time or from half-time teachers to full-time teachers. The only exception for this year has been if you had a half-time special ed resource teacher, since all of those resource positions went to full-time, those half-time teachers were allowed to increase to full-time. But that's been the only exception to the change. There was also no lane restrictions. So if you have a gen ed teacher that wants to transfer or reassign into special ed or vice versa, there's no restrictions when you're doing those reassignments or when you're having transfers for this year. Any positions that were converted to ESP positions for this year, so like Virginia had mentioned, a lot of our ELM assistants were converted from ELM teachers. All of those positions are converted back to teachers. If you still have the allocation this year, you can apply, or sorry, you can get transfer candidates, and if you don't select a transfer, they will be open for overage teachers. So ESP conversions don't happen until after the certified overage process, so that we make sure we've got those teacher applications for the teachers. And then due to the number of overages we are anticipating this year, high-need schools, acceleration zone schools were previously allowed to start hiring from our new teacher hiring pools and not take overages, but due to the amount of overages we're expecting, no schools are hiring until after the overage process this year. So after the transfer closes on the 4th, on the 8th, which is that Monday, we'll send a names list to you that says here's all of our open positions. If you are a school that still is in an overage situation, you share that list with your teachers, and so you can ask for volunteers for overage. If your teacher is probationary, camp focus assistant plan, they cannot volunteer the overage. That doesn't mean that they can't be the overage teacher. So you have a probationary teacher who's your senior, and you're still over being a teacher, they can still be overage. They just can't volunteer to be overage. Usually give the teachers a day to make that decision if they want to volunteer, or you're making that selection. Sending us the names. The next day we turn around and we notify the teachers, you have been overaged, here's the needs list. Teachers have an opportunity to list the schools that they are preferencing. They can list up to 10 schools on their sheet. Once teachers make those selections, we send the principal preference form out to you. So I'll let you know who preferenced your school. You'll get a copy of their application, their preference form. You have a week to interview all of those candidates. So if somebody did preference your school, we do ask that. Some form of interview is done. So it could be an in-person interview. You can do it on the phone. We have principals that go observe teachers. But that everybody that preferences your school is the same type of consideration. That Monday, your forms would be due, and then the overage placement meeting is scheduled for May 31st.
Anna, sorry, real quick. Are we using our allocations that we have on Business Plus, or are we using it on the allocations that we were sent for doing the new budget?
We are doing everything, at least in HR, as far as I know, based off of the staff status sheets that you had. So any allocations that were given back already this year, we've taken those into account. But if there's anything new, it was
That's
given.
correct. Yep. You're
Okay.
using off your allocation from Business Plus. We know that many of you have already submitted your 3%, but we're not going off of that. That goes to the board, and so we are status quo what you were given on your Business Plus at the plus 2-ish class size.
We had questions during the overage process. We usually identify schools that are held for overage, or their positions are held for overage. So we may ask you not to post your job and transfer so that these positions are available for any teachers who are being overage. This year, no schools have been identified, no positions have been identified, so nobody's positions have been on hold. The other thing, we have a lot of conversions from dean to APs, or you had an all-day teacher that you were converting to a dean, or any other type of certified to certified conversions. If you're planning on doing that and you haven't submitted those conversions to PC yet, we would ask that you do it now, because that helps us know where those allocations really are. If you're affecting a person, that person would know if they still have a position in being overage. So I think we have a lot of the APs settled. If you have any other cert to cert conversions you're doing, if you guys can get those sent in, those would help.
Just a quick question. That kind of goes back to the previous question. So I have two different budgets. One says I have a half-time dean. The new one does. The old one says I don't. So do I pretend that I don't?
You pretend you don't. We're doing
So
what
I
that
interview
is.
so that I don't hire. So I'm interviewing. So I think the issue is that people are making the decision, and teachers also, about
like they're slated to overage, so now they're looking at transfers. But if something happens, and if, for example, 3% and the board changes what occurs, all these hiring decisions and transfer decisions have already occurred. So what happens in that scenario?
So if a teacher, sorry, I think so if the allocations return, anything happens with the budget changes and you get those positions back, that teacher can come back.
Say that again?
I guess if you can.
Transfer. No, it's
So I think the confusion is that you have Plan A, you have Plan B, and Plan B has not gone before the board yet, correct? So those decisions haven't been made. So we're moving forward with Plan A. If the board accepts Plan B, then we go with Plan B. We understand that there's ambiguity right now, but understand that there are 95 separate plans. 95. So you're going to keep going how you were going with Plan A. If Plan B happens, then we'll deal with Plan B. Make sense? The board meets, they'll come back on May 9th. That was the mandate that we were given from the board. So all of this information that we're collecting, and I'll get into this a little bit later, that comes back to the board to talk about those reductions. But in the meantime, we have to keep moving forward with what we had already put in place as far as the tentative budget. Okay.
All right, so even as we're going through transfer, without having the overage step yet, we still have a lot of teachers. We do have teachers transferring, and we have teachers that are still resigning. And so we wanted to go over kind of a few of the scenarios that we've heard, or kind of the common ones. Let's say you had to overage one teacher. You have your 3 teachers were hired this year with the same seniority date. We have a lot of questions about who gets picked. If you only have to overage one. And really they're running straws, you're cutting cards, anything that is fair for all employees, but we don't have a way of saying, you know, I'm going to pick you over you, all we have the same seniority date. And keep in mind, seniority is district seniority, not how long they've been at your school. Same kind of scenario, you have a teacher resign, but you have overage 3 teachers. You have one of those teachers was a limited term teacher who was covering for a leave. 2 of the teachers are on standard contracts and have the same seniority date. Who comes back in that situation? And so it would be your, of the 2 standard teachers, those will be your first to come back. Since they have the same seniority date, you do the same thing. You're drawing straws, you're cutting cards to see who is coming back into that position. So we have a lot of grant positions that are ending this year. And so, kind of similar to Virginia's grant question, if you have grant funded positions, let's say TIP 4 position is ending, that grant teacher was overaged. Grant funding is approved in July. That teacher gets to come back into that position. So even if they go transfer somewhere else, they still get to come back because the funding was restored to the position. So we do have some that are going to have transferred already and may not want to come back into that grant funded position, especially if they know it may only be for one year. And in that case, you would do the typical reassignment process within your school to make a selection or the position is posted. Yes, because their funding is restored.
What was the question?
The question was even if they transfer.
What was that?
The question was even if they transfer, do they get to come back? And they do, because it's their funding that was restored, so they can come back to their position. So we have another one where you are overaging your dean, you have a grant-funded IS position, and then a first grade teacher that's in a standard position. Your dean's district seniority is from 2007, your grant IS is from 2015, and your first grade teacher was hired just January of this year. You're given back a sixth grade position, which are the 3 return. The first grade teacher. If the first grade teacher chooses not to return, you have the option of, again, doing reassignment within your building, and then offering you to come back and your grant has to come back.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because the dean isn't a classroom teacher, so you got a classroom teaching position come open. Deans don't they can't help classroom teachers. So that's why the dean will do that first.
Anna, could you clarify that last one? Because a dean's position is a teacher contract.
Yes.
And if you lose that position, wouldn't that teacher contracted position have a right back into a classroom?
The dean, the reason, like I was trying to explain earlier, when you overage cases. So your dean isn't even considered when you're doing that. Even though a dean is a teacher allocation, you're not considering that dean when you're overaging cases teacher. A dean is a specialized position, just like an IS, alternate at a secondary school. Intervention teachers are kind of their own department, our own section, similar with the dean. They're considered kind of on their own when it comes to certified. They just don't bump out a certified teacher. If you have an opening, you can place them into it. They just want to bump out a certified teacher.
WEA stands behind that too, just so you know. So.
You have the week of interviewing teacher candidates that partners with positions. We are this year holding an overage interview day. It's going to be on a Saturday at Hub High School. So it's just an opportunity for you to come and your interview team. One day, one shot to interview all the candidates at Partnership School. So every school here would have a classroom at Hub High School to do their interviewing. It's from 8 to 3. We'll send out more information in May when it gets closer to that date. We thought it'd be a nice one-stop shop, kind of like an interview job there, but you're only interviewing overages. So after the overage meeting on the 31st, Position Control will review all the other conversions you've submitted. So if you submitted an ELL teacher to be converted back to ELL assistants. If that position has not been filled with an overage, then PC will review all of your conversion requests at that time and approve them. It will work to get them done before that June 14th date, but it usually takes them about that long to go through all of them. On June 2nd is when we are looking at opening up the remainder of the job board. So any position that's not filled through overage would now be open to the teacher hiring pools. You'd be able to hire from there. Just a reminder with WEA, we have an agreement that teachers cannot transfer 3 weeks before the start of their contract date unless they have approval from their administrator. So depending on what school or track you're on. If a teacher is trying to transfer after those dates, we will always reach out to you and make sure we release the teacher first before we let the transfer paperwork go through. Any teacher that is overage has the opportunity up until September 8th to return back to that position. If that position is restored, or we have another similar position in the school, that they can come back to. What was that? Overage only. Overage teachers get to return. So we've had a few, we've been hearing a few rumblings out there this year about teachers not being able to transfer more than one time during the transfer period, which is not true. There's nothing in their contract or anything we have that prevents them from transferring more than one time. So we do mark our application as transfer accepted. You can see that in the search box, but again, teachers are still allowed to transfer more than once. Again, probationary employees can be identified as overage. They just can't volunteer for overage. So I've been getting a lot of calls from people that are probation or within their first 3 years and asking if they can still be overage. And then limited term teachers, if you have vacancies within your school, should be reassigned within your school. All right.
Also wanted to mention, because we get this question a lot, can minimally effective teachers apply for transfer? Yes. Yes. They can't volunteer for overage, but they can always try to transfer. But they could be overage. That's right. They can't volunteer for overage, but we get this a lot that, well, I have a minimally effective, she can't transfer. Yeah, she can. But ineffective. They can try to transfer. Yes. There's nothing stopping them from transferring. And if I was going to give you any advice, call.
And I tell that to the teachers too that call that are minimally effective or ineffective. They ask the same question. Does that mean I can't transfer? They're afraid that their evaluation is going to be seen by every administrator in the district. And so I do let them know that principals call other principals and get references. And so there's nothing preventing them from applying for transfer. Again, they just can't volunteer overage. And if your school is not in an overage situation, you can't overage a teacher. So we have a lot of teachers. I think we have more of teachers now that don't want to be there anymore, and so they ask me for something overage list, although their school is not overage.
So this question is regarding teacher who voluntarily transfers.
Because they're going to be overage.
Because they're going to be overage. Do they have a right of return?
No, I believe they're overage.
But if they do transfer and then your position comes back, you can interview that. You have to go through the whole interview process and you can interview them to bring them back? Or
You can unless it's grant funded, and then if their funding continues, they get to come back.
okay, good. So a teacher transfers because they're going to be overaged, and then you get that position back. They don't have the right to slide back into it, but you're going to open it up to interviews anyway at that point. Can they be one of the interview candidates?
Yeah, they can apply for transfer
Okay, I
back
didn't
to
hear what
school.
you said. I'm sorry.
They can apply for transfer back.
But isn't it up to the principal? Like, let's just say my math teacher goes to Galena because he or she might get overage. Isn't it up to Tom to release that teacher now?
Well, now you think after those deadlines.
After July 10th.
Correct.
But not if it's an overage, right? If it's an
Overages have until September 8th to return back to their position. So right now, we are still, yeah. So the question was, if we have more teachers than we have positions to place them in, what are we going to do? So we are still operating under the directive of we're doing everything we can to make sure there's not a reduction of our teachers. So until, like Kristen said, the final budget's approved, we won't know what those numbers look like, but we're doing everything we can to make sure we're not going to reduce teachers. know that we have a final date, but it will depend on when the budget's approved and all the changes are made. I would try to encourage them to stay. We do have, to give you an example, there's 124 jobs on the job board this morning. 48% of them are special ed jobs. And so if you even have gen ed teachers that are willing to go into the options program for special ed, we're always going to need those special ed teachers. So that's an option for them too, if they want to look at STEM. And we help them through that process. So the question is, are we doing anything because the district doesn't pay to help a teacher go through the options program, you know, to get an autism endorsement? We don't have funding for they do have 3 years to do it. Autism doesn't take as long because they have a generalist endorsement already. So they get to teach it, they have a license for it, they just have 3 years to get fully licensed. But the district doesn't have, we don't have the funding to pay for it.
So if you lost 2 allocations and those 2 teachers are the 2 lowest seniority in your school are considered overages, correct? So those people go out and they're right now, they're thinking, oh, I see an opening somewhere, I'm going to try to secure a job. They're not considered a transfer, are they at this point? They're transferring. They're a transfer, they're not considered an overage?
Until May 10th, May 8th, when you're identifying that overage teacher, they're not an overage.
So they have no right to come back to their home school then?
No, because anything is going to happen. We've got 2.5 weeks left of transfer. So if you the 2 other teachers transfer from your school, you're no longer going to lose those 2 senior teachers. Because you have transferred, your school is no longer overage.
But they know they don't have a job for next year. They don't, in our school, because we don't have that allocation, so they're overages. They're overages.
They wouldn't be identified until May 8th that you truly, because again, what if 2 teachers transfer? Then they don't have to be overage because you have positions at your school.
So if a person wanted a chance to come back to our school, should they not interview right now for other jobs that are open?
They can't tell them whether they can or can't. They could look at transfers. If you get a position open after they transfer, you can interview them and bring them back. Do the interview process. Any other questions? Oh, it is. May 1. So non-renewal notices go out May 1. You can submit those UHRs. We're holding them and we'll post them on May 1. But that's
What was the question?
if you were non-renewing a teacher when their position is posted. So the official non-renewal date is May 1.
And that should have been on the staff status because they did their
Yeah, so when you sent out the summary sheets for evaluations, you should have marked them as a non-renewal. That's what these are. Oh, and then one other change we're making for this year, to help kind of speed up the process, instead of me sending in paper forms for you to fill out and fax back, scan back to me, we're doing everything through Google Docs. So you'll get the link to complete everything online. I just think it'll be faster to get new names, to get teachers' positions, just to do it electronically.
So that wasn't on the staff status form, that was on the contract recommendations. Correct. So those allocations will return to us.
On May 1, we'll post the position. Well, you can take it, the position, you can reassign within your building, and then post whatever position is still open. Any other questions?